let's go ahead and work on these tires. I think these are pretty cool. These have some really interesting details to them. But let's see if we can find another reference image. Looks like maybe this one might help. Yeah, this has got some nice contrast between the treads and the tire here, so we can really kind of see what the shape of them is. So it looks to me like we've got, well, it's a repeating pattern. So we've got this piece and this piece, and it repeats all the way around the tire. And also it's mirrored and flipped 180 degrees and copied all the way around the tire as well. So it really looks like we only need to create two pieces, these two pieces here, for the tire treads. In addition, we've got these bolts here. We're going to use the same trick we used for the brackets around the window blocks here. We're just going to duplicate and rotate around the center object, but we're going to use an array to do that. And I think we can use an array for the treads as well. So let's see if we can do that. I think, first of all, I'm just going to take this tire and I'll just build off of this. Let me first move it out of that scene collection. It looks like we're in the vehicle main here. So I'll take this and right-click and I'll say move to collection, and we'll move it to the actual main scene collection up top. So there it is here. I'm going to call this tire so we know what that is. And then I'll go ahead and hide the vehicle main and the chains. We don't need that. And also, I think we don't need the cap fills here on either side. So I'll go to face mode and I'll hit that C key again for the circle select tool and just click and drag all of these. Hit X and delete faces, and I'll do the same thing over here because I don't think we need those right now, or at least we want to rebuild them. In addition, I want to add a mirror modifier, so whatever I do on one side happens on the other, and to do that I'm going to need to split it in half. So let's press Control R and add an edge loop down the center, and then I'll hit Enter 2 times to ensure that it's exactly down the center of the object. Now if I go to face mode, I can Alt select between two faces to select that whole face loop, hit X and delete faces. Now let's go ahead and add a mirror modifier to this right here. Not much happens, which tells us that it's probably the rotation. Let's try it. Control A and apply the rotation. Sure enough, there we go. I'll also turn on clipping because we want the points in the middle to merge together. And all right, so here we are. I'll turn on the edit cage on the other side so we can see it. I'll go into edge mode and alt click this edge, and now I'll begin right about in here. So this is where we're going to begin creating that tire. Let's go to the front view here. And so we want it to be about this width. So something like this. We need to extrude out and kind of curve the top and the bottom of the tire here. So let's go ahead and press E and X and pull out just a bit. And I'm trying to keep the polygons roughly the same size as I go here. And I'm going to hit E and X and pull out just a bit. And then I'm going to hit the S key and scale in just a bit to kind of curve the tire just a bit. And let's do that one more time. E, X, pull out. And then I'll hit the S key and scale in just a bit like that. So we've got that basic shape of the tire there. Okay, now we need to get all this in here. So what we should do is go ahead and hit E and S and scale in some, maybe like this. Maybe I'll pull out just a smidge, just a little bit. There we go. And then let's see where we need to go. Let's go to the side view, and it looks like we need to go all the way into here. That's where that rim begins, I think, right in here, right there. So with this selected still, I'll hit E and S and I'll scale in just a bit like this. There we go. We should probably push in some, right? Since it's kind of moving in toward the rim there. And then let's do that again, E, S, and scale into about there. And also push in just a bit like that. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good shape for the tire. Let's bring back the vehicle main here and let's just take a look at it. Yeah, I think that's working pretty well. Okay, so hide that vehicle main again. And now we want to work on the wheel. And the wheel begins with this small ridge here. I could create a new cylinder and try and fit it in there, or I could just extrude off of this and then split it off as its own object. Let's take a look at doing that. I'll tab into edit mode and let's alt click this edge. And I think we just need to pull out. So E and X and pull out some. And then E and S and scale in a bit. And then we want to get this. It looks like it kind of curves in or pushes in a bit before it comes back out with this rim where all the bolts are. So let's press E and X and push in. And then let's hit S and kind of scale it in a bit. And then let's hit E and S just to give it a little bit of a indentation there. And then let's begin bringing it back up. So I'll press E and X and pull out, but I'll also scale in with the S key, kind of like that. See how this works? About like that, maybe? All right, and then let's get this piece where that first row of bolts are. I'll go back to the side view, and yeah, I think this is pretty good. We can see that first row of bolts there. So let's hit E and S and scale in to about here, like that. And then it looks like it pushes in again. So let's hit E and X and push in about like that. And now we need to get that place where the inside bolts are. So let's go ahead and hit E and S and scale into about right there. And now let's pull that center piece out, EX. I don't know, how far do you think it goes? Something like that? Okay. Now let's hit E and S and scale in. And I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to hit E, S, and scale in. And then I'm going to merge these points. So with this still selected, I'm going to press Alt-M and choose to merge these points at the center. And there we go. Okay. So we have that. I think that looks pretty good. We've also got it over here on the other side. However, I don't think it looks quite like this on the other side, because if we take a look at it kind of underneath here, that's not exactly how that looks. So I think it needs to be a little bit different on the inside than on the outside. So we're going to have to do a couple of things to be able to edit that inner part of the wheel. As I mentioned, I think I want to split this out, so I'll tab into edit mode and I'll just go to this edge right here, alt click that edge so it's all the way around there, like that. And I'm going to edge split that so it's two pieces of the same object. So let's press Control E and go to edge split right here. Now those are two different pieces. So if we go back and now select this part with the L key, you can see that's its own piece. All right, so let's now press the P key and split it out for its own object. Choose selection there. And now, so I think we can maybe grab that edge right here. Yeah, there it is. If we go to wireframe, we can see it there. And then I'm just going to hit E and X and just push this in like this. That's about all we need. We don't really need them to connect. So now let's go back to solid view, tab back into object mode, and there it is. So now it's its own object. So we could call this, so this one is tire, this one could be wheel. Let's call it wheel. And now we can go in and modify this, but we have to apply that mirror modifier. So I'll click apply here. And now if we come into here, let's grab these faces here with the circle select tool and press Control plus on the numpad. And I'm going to extend this out to about here and hit X and delete faces. Now we can take this edge right here, wherever that inside edge is. There it is, right there. And we can kind of work on this. It looks like It may go back a bit and scale in some. And maybe let's push it in. And I'll hit E and X and push that in. Maybe scale in a bit. And then I think I'll just close it up here. So ES, scale it in like that. Push it in. Yeah, let's just try that. I'll hit E and Enter, Alt M at center. So there we go. We've just closed that off, right? So let's press Shift S1 to get the cursor into the center of the grid. And I'm going to go ahead and hide the wheel and the tire for now while we work on this. And I'll click on the scene collection up top to make sure that it pops into this area here when we create a new object. So it looks to me like it's just cylinders. It's kind of hard to see, but maybe the bolts here are 6 sides. Let's try that. Shift A, Mesh, Cylinder. Let's change the number of vertices to 6. I'll change the cap to triangle fan. However, we don't need it on the bottom. So I'll just grab these once again with that circle select tool and delete those faces. Let's scale it in the Z with S and Z. So maybe about like this. Maybe a little bit smaller. Let's try this. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's create another cylinder. And for this one, let's make it, let's do 12 sides. And we'll scale it down. Once again, we'll get rid of the faces on the bottom here, like this. And then let's put it in place. So let me just bring it down about right here. And let's scale it down. It looks like maybe about like this. A little bit more like that. How about that? Let's give this a try. There we go. So that'll be our bolt that will then place all the way around the wheel here. Let's combine these together with Control J, and then I'll call it bolt. And let's move the origin to this bottom edge. So let's Alt click that edge, Shift S2 to move the cursor to it, and then we tab into object mode and move that origin to the 3D cursor. I think that'll just make it a little easier to move around and place. All right, let's bring back the wheel, and I'll go ahead and bring back that tire too. Let's turn it in the y-axis, RY90. Let's scale it down quite a bit, and let's come over here and try and put it in place. So if we go to that side view with the 3 key and go to wireframe, let's see if we can find where to place this. Maybe we can put it right over here, about this big, like that. Let's try that. Let's go back to solid mode and then see where we are. Okay, so I think that's a little bit big. Let's try this. Yeah, I think that's right. Maybe a little bit bigger. Let's try this. And I'll go ahead and rotate it in the X, RX, and just kind of put it like that. Let's try that. Okay. So there's that bolt. Let's also put one inside there too. Let me bring this up a little bit more like that. Let's also duplicate this and put one inside here like this. Something like that. And then I'm going to take it and I'm going to move it up just a bit like this. Give it a spin so it isn't exactly like the other one. All right, so now that we've got those two, let's figure out how to use the array modifier to create all of these in a fairly simple and efficient way. The first thing let's do is move this 3D cursor into the center of, say, the tire, right in there. That's really kind of the center of everything. So let's move the 3D cursor to this, Shift S2. And then what let's also do is let's create an empty. We're going to need, just like we used an empty with the array modifier for the chain, we need an empty or another object that we can turn and rotate the array around a center point. So that's what this is going to be. So with the cursor there in the center of the tire, I'm going to press Shift A and create an empty plane axis right there. So there it is. Now, in addition, I want to take the pivot point, or excuse me, the origin of this object, that little orange dot right there, and move it into the 3D cursor. So let's go to Object, Set Origin, and Origin to 3D Cursor. There it is. Now we also need to make sure that our rotation and scale are applied here. If I hit the N key, you can see that we have quite a bit of rotation and scale here. So let's press Control A and apply the rotation and scale. There we go. Now we've got zeros and ones there. So now what we need to do is just add an array modifier to this object. So with that selected, I'll go to Add Modifier Array, and let's bring this out to, I don't know, a count of 6 for now, so we can see the array there. Currently we have it set to relative offset, and we don't want that. We need to turn that off, and we need to come over here to Object Offset. And once again, we can use that eyedropper to then select the empty. There we go. Now if we select the empty, and I'll go to the side view here. Now if we select the empty and we hit R, let's see what happens. I'll hit R and rotate, and you can see the objects rotating around that center point. Now, how many do we need? That's a good question. So if we kind of go, I don't know, around 15, I'll press the Control key, and now we'll snap to 5-degree increments. So let's say we put it at 15 degrees for the rotation. Now if we go back to the bolt object and begin playing with the count, I'll increase it from 6, let's just keep going on around here, to 24. So I rotated the empty 15 degrees, and then I brought the count up to 24. And that seemed to work pretty well. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now we need to do that again for these here, for the inside bolts. But I don't think we can use the same empty object here. We're going to need a new one to be able to rotate independently of the outer layer. So what I'm going to do is just hide this one here. I'll just hide it. And then let's create a new one. Shift A, empty plane axis. So now this is empty 001. Now let's do this all again. I'll select this one. Let's take a look at it. Oh, it's got rotation and scale again. So let's press Control A and apply the rotation and scale. Now let's move that origin to the 3D cursor. Object, Set Origin, 3D cursor. Now let's add an array modifier to it. We've got a count of, well, let's go 6 again here. Let's turn off relative offset, turn on object offset, and with the eyedropper, let's choose that empty 001. Now if we select that empty, let's take a look at how we do this. Let's press R and rotate this around like this. Now, how far should we go here? We went 15 degrees before. What if we go 30 degrees? I'll try that. And then let's select the bolt and increase the count. I'm thinking 12 maybe? Let's try it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Something like that. So we've got 24 of the outside bolts and 12 of the inside. Yeah, let's go with that. All right, so what we can do now is go ahead and apply these array modifiers and then join all of the bolts to the wheel object. So with this, I'll select this row of bolts and I'll click Apply. And then I'll select this row of bolts and I'll click Apply here. Now we can just select these two empties right here and hit X and delete. And there we go. So let's now combine these. I'll take this row of bolts and that row and shift click the wheel. Now let's join it all with Control J. There we go. And let's see if we can smooth these a bit too. I'll come up to Object and Shade Smooth. That looks awful. So let's go over to Object Data and turn on Auto Smooth. And it looks a little bit better. So here's with no smoothing whatsoever right here. Let's bring it up until we kind of have something that we like here. Oh, I don't want it that far. So I kind of want it, well, it's kind of hard to get exactly what you want for everything, isn't it? We may have to use the sharp tool here. Let me add a little bit of a bevel to this right here. Let's tab into edit mode and select that edge. And then I'll press Control B and pull this out just a bit. And then let's add a few edges here, a few segments. There we go. I think that helps some. Let's bring it up. Well, that's not bad in terms of the bolts and the smoothness of it. I feel like we need to add a sharp edge on the outside here. Let's try that. Let's tab into edit mode and alt-click this edge right here. And let's press Control E and mark sharp there. All right, and then let's also do it here. Let's try this. See how that looks. Does that give it a little more definition? It kind of does, but maybe we don't need that one right here. Let me take this one off and see. I'll choose clear sharp there. Let's try that. That's actually not bad. Yeah, I think I kind of like that. All right, now for the tire treads. Let's take this tire, and I'm going to go ahead and smooth it. Shade smooth, just so we can see how it looks there. Okay, and I'll also apply that mirror modifier. We don't need that on right now, so I'll apply that. Now, how are we going to create these pieces here? What's interesting is we really only need to create two objects, this and this. And once we do that, it's just a matter of duplicating, repeating, mirroring, etc. to get all the rest of the treads. So just like we've done several times before, I'm going to go ahead and just use a polygon plane to get that basic shape. And then we'll apply a solidify modifier to that. So I'll maybe grab this point here and press Shift S2 to move that cursor there. And then let's press Shift A, Mesh Plane. And here we go. Here's our polygon plane. I'll turn it in the x-axis, RX90. Let's scale it down. And I'll bring it out just in front of the tire there. Okay. So now that we've got that, let's go to the front view. And I'm going to scale this down with the S key, and then let's try and figure out about how big it's supposed to be. If we look at the reference image, it really doesn't give us much information there about the size of the tread, so we're just going to have to kind of eyeball it here. And I'm thinking maybe about that size, really. Let's kind of go with that. And then let's tab into edit mode and grab this edge, and I'm going to move it in like this. Let's hit E, move this up, hit S, scale in, rotate a bit, E, and move that up like this. Let's try this. Something like this. So let me scale this down a bit. I'll scale that up a bit. So you may have to do a little bit of tweaking here to get the shape the way you want it, and that's fine. Okay, so now we've got, let's say we've got that shape in place. Now we need this up here, or this right here, let's say right here. So to do that one, it looks like it's about the same size coming off of there. So I'm just going to hit extrude and pull this off like this till it's about in the center. Let's go to wireframe and see if I can see that center line. There it is right there. So I'll move it up to here, just almost to the center, and rotate it a bit like that. Okay. Now let's take this and let's split this. I'll press Control E and edge split right here. Now if I deselect it and select this, I can move that off. There we go. So let's say we've got that. Yeah, let's go with that for now. We can adjust this quite a bit even after we apply the array to it. Let's press Control R and bring this down about right here. And then if we select this edge, we can hit E and pull out just a bit like that. And then I will select this and this point right here and press Alt-M and merge at last right there. So that creates that basic shape. It looks like it just has kind of an angle coming out of that right there. So I think that's doing pretty well. I think maybe I'll move this back some and this down like this. Kind of hard to tell, but we can play with it till to our heart's content, that's for sure. Maybe move that up. All right. So let's say that that's the basic shape of our tire treads here. And okay, let me move this up. I think this needs to be a little bit farther apart. There we go. Okay. So there's the basic outline of our tire treads. Now what I'm going to do is use a shrink wrap modifier to take this and mold it to the tire a little better. So with this selected, I'll then come over here and click Add Modifier and Shrink Wrap. And then in the same way we've done before, let's click that eyedropper and click on the tire. And there you can see it's been conformed to the shape of the tire there. Now let's click on this offset and drag and pull it out some. So we can pull it out about to where we think the tread would be, maybe like that. It's hard to know exactly how far the tread would be out at this point in time. But once again, once we get everything in place, we can do a little more adjusting. I'll go ahead and smooth this. Object Shade Smooth. Okay. I'm going to press Control A and apply the scale just to make sure that that's done. What let's do now is go ahead and apply that Array Modifier and see if we can get this tread all the way around the tire. So once again, I'll select that tire and let's move the cursor to it. Shift S2. We'll create an empty. Shift A, empty plane axes. There it is. Now if we take that tread and we come over here to Add Modifier and Array, there we can see it now. And then if we increase the count, oops, let's click here, increase the count. Maybe I'll bring it up to 6 again. There we are. Now, one thing I didn't do is move this origin to the 3D cursor. We need to do that. So let's go to Object, Set Origin to 3D Cursor. There we go. Now let's turn off Relative Offset, turn on Object Offset, and let's select that empty object. Now you can see what happened pretty quickly. It went ahead and added a few around the tire. Let's select that empty and let's rotate in the x-axis. I'll press RX and let's rotate around like this. So I'm going to rotate it back like this and kind of get the right spacing in here. At least I hope. Let me try this. RX. And I kind of want to get it right about, I don't know, right about there. It looks like it'd be okay for the tread, for the spacing between the treads, right? And then now let's go back and select that and increase our count. So let's just click and we're going to increase it all the way around here. And let's see if it comes out relatively even. No. So let's go back to 36. And then let's select that empty object and let's hit R and X. And then there we go. I just moved the mouse a little bit. Right there. There we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and do a little more adjusting on the actual original tread object. For the shrink wrap, let's click on Edit Cage here so we can see it. Now let's go to Vertex mode and let's just start moving this around a bit because you can see when I move it around, it moves everything around for all of the pieces of the array. So I think like this. Yeah, I'm just kind of moving these around, tweaking these a bit until I get it kind of the way I want it. Let's zoom in here. Feel like that's pretty good right there. Now I think the next thing we can do is let's try and add a solidify modifier to this. So let's come over here to the add modifier and let's choose solidify. And that gives us some thickness to those treads. Let's come over here and choose only rim so it doesn't have any back faces. And I'll click and drag on the thickness and move that in or out to kind of go into the tire there like that. Okay, we're getting there. Let's go to object data and let's turn on auto smooth. All right, that helps. All right, now that we've got the treads pretty much in place, now we need to think about how to get them over to the other side so they're in line all the way across the tire. To mirror this over to the other side, we're just going to need to take the original geometry and rotate it around the y-axis. So if we tab into edit mode, you can see here's that original geometry. If I take this and I duplicate it, Shift D and enter, and then I take away this array modifier. I'm just going to hit the X here to take that away. You can see there it is selected. That's our duplicate. It's over here called plane 013. What I'm going to do now is just rotate it around the y-axis. So I'll press RY180. And there it is. It's over on the other side. Now that I've done that, it looks to me like these aren't going out far enough. There's too big of a gap between these. You can see here, there's a smaller gap. So now's the time to come in here and adjust this. So I'll grab this edge here and just hit G and begin moving it out just a little bit. Maybe like this, something like that. Let's try that. So I'll take this and delete that duplicate. I'll grab this original object again. I'll press Shift D and enter. Then I'll remove the array modifier. And there it is right there. I'll spin it around the y-axis, RY180. And there it is. Now is that almost looks like it's too much, like it's too close. So let's try this again. I'm going to grab this and just bring it back. So it's just a matter of tweaking is all. And you don't really know where it's supposed to be until you go ahead and spin that around. So I'll duplicate it again, get rid of the array RY180. And let's see how that works. Yeah, I think that's probably pretty good. Let's go with that. So now we need to go through the same process with a new empty for the array. So I'll take this empty, this is just called empty, and I'll hide it away. And then let's go ahead and bring in a new one, because I don't want to turn this old one because it will affect the original treads there. So I'll press Shift A and bring in an empty plain axes, and there it is. So this one is empty 001. Now I want to take this and apply the rotation and the scale. Control A, rotation and scale. Now I want to apply or add an array modifier to it. I'll bring the count up to 6 again. I'll turn off relative offset, turn on object offset, click the eyedropper and select the empty. There we go. Now if we select that empty, hit R and X, there it is. We can see it going there. Now let's see where we need to put it. I'm going to go to the front view, but I'll press R and X so I can rotate it and kind of line it up with that original tread. So I think something about like that. Well, let me bring it back just a bit. Oops, RX. I'm going to go with that. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Let's try it. We can always adjust it a little bit more once we've added more of the count to it. So let's select that tread. And over here in the array, let's increase the count all the way around. I think we had 36 the last time. Let's see how we do here. There's 36, and it comes out being just a little bit off. So Let's go back to that empty, hit R and X, and I'll try and match this up. Yeah, there we go. There we go. That worked pretty well. Okay, so there we have our treads. Now I think we just need to do some adjusting here. So I'll select the original treads, and I think I'd like to apply the shrink wrap. I think we have it in the right place in terms of how far out from the tire it should be. So I'll click apply there. And then this solidify, I think we can apply this. We've got only rim turned on. So I'm going to take this to the top of the stack and click apply here. Now if we tab into edit mode and go to edge mode, I can select that edge right underneath here and begin pulling this in or out like this. So let's go to that front view. And if I pull this out some, maybe I can also pull this out a bit like this. And then go to the side view and maybe we can pull it in just a bit like this. So I'm just trying to get it to kind of blend in with the tire there. Yeah, something like that. And now let's do the same thing over on the other side. If I select the other side and tab into edit mode, there it is. So let's go ahead and apply that shrink wrap. And we'll apply the solidify. And we'll tab into edit mode and select that edge there inside the tire and pull that out. I'll go to the front view and we'll pull it out so it's more in line with the edge of the tire there. And then I'll grab this one and pull this out like that. All right. Now we can pull that back. Maybe bring it in. So I'm just trying to blend it in with the tire here, that's all. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. Let's now bring back the vehicle main here and take a look at it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, one last thing before I apply the Array Modifier, I'd like to take this edge right here and let's bevel that. I'd like to press Control B. Let's just pull out, bevel that, add a couple of segments there just to round that out a bit. And let's try over here. This just looks a little bit too sharp for me. Let's do this one over here. Add the bevel there too. There we go. Yeah, I think that works pretty well. Let's now combine all of these into one object so we can place it for the other tires. So we need to first apply the arrays. Let's apply this one and apply this one here. Then let's select both of those treads there and the tire and press Control J to join them together. Then we'll come down to the object data and turn on auto smooth. And if we bring it up to about, oh, I don't know, 32, 35 in there, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I think that looks okay. In here, I feel like I kind of want to put a sharp edge right along in here, let's say. Control E, mark sharp. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I think that helped there. Okay. And so now this is all one object, right? Well, not yet, because we have to join it with the wheel. So with the tire selected, I'll then select the wheel, and let's press Control J there. Now we may need to play with the auto smooth again. Let's bring this down. So if we adjust the smoothness over here, the angle, we really can't get it the way we want it for both the tire and the wheel when it's all one object. So that's fine. We can just take the wheel and split it back out, or I can just undo it. There we go. So what I can do now is move these in conjunction with each other to the other parts of the vehicle. Let me select this empty and delete it. And I'll grab this empty and delete it. So we can clean that up a bit. Now what let's do is take these two objects here and let's move the cursor to the center of the grid with Shift S1. Now we need to move the origins of these to the 3D cursor. So I'll go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. And then if we add a mirror modifier, So we do that. We have the wheel. Let's select the tire, add modifier, mirror, and we have the tire over there as well. So let's grab that temporary wheel and delete it. There we go. Now we can take this tire and this wheel. Let's go to the wireframe and let's just duplicate it and move it over here. So Shift D, Y, and I'll just drag it over, put it right in here. Let's get rid of those temporary ones. Here, delete, here, and delete this one too. There we go. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. I think as we texture these, they're going to look pretty cool with all the treads.